Hello, Tristan Ogilvie here, joined as always by the full Pubcast team. I mean, of course, Lucy O'Brien.
Hello.
Cam Shea.
Hi, Tristan.
And Luke Riley.
Hey.
And as we drop the curtain on 2015, and before we drop trousers and jump dick first into the holiday break, we thought we'd look back on the year for our 15 favourite games, not necessarily 15 games that we've all completed. In some instances, some of us haven't even played them. But in some sense, either individually or collectively, these were our favourites. So with that in mind, we should jump right in. Wait.
So let me just ask you, Tristan, are there 15 different editions of Deadly Premonitions at this point? Because I don't want people to think that that's
close.
what the joke is going to be. These are actually 15 games we genuinely loved.
Yes. So with that in mind, let's hop straight into number 15, which is Downwell. Now, this is a game I have not played, and I can only assume it's a sequel to Weltress.
It's actually the story of Timmy O'Toole.
Oh, right.
And this is, it's actually kind of, they've changed the timeline a little bit. This is a child Sting who is jumping down the well to try and save Timmy O'Toole, who's stuck at the bottom of the well, and he's just armed with nothing but gun boots.
And a label maker. No, wait, that was Bart's thing. Anyways,
you got to remember back to like season 2 of The Simpsons or whatever it was.
My memory's not that good. No, Downwell.
So this is probably me just absolutely butchering the mechanics of it because I just hopped in to record it quickly, so we had 4 minutes of footage to hand.
Yep.
And I have played this a little bit and haven't played it for a little while. But holy crap, like the reason this is number 15 and on the list is because I think that this is one of the tightest designed action loop games of the year.
Right.
The controls it is so good, the mechanics are so good. You've got gun boots, you can use them to basically slow your descent as well as shoot enemies beneath you.
Yep.
Most enemies you can kind of head bop, and jumping on their head will, if you can keep jumping on enemies and killing enemies without touching the ground, you build up a combo.
Right.
But you can see this charge meter on the right. That represents like how many shots of your gun boots you have before you have to reload them. And you reload them by hitting enemies or by touching the ground.
Gotcha.
So there's this really interesting, and there's like wall jumping and stuff. There's this really interesting blend of mechanics to kind of keep you flowing and keep the momentum going. But you have to move really intelligently because you've only got a handful of lives that you can lose. But then along the way, you're going to these shops and you're getting like different weapons that profoundly impact the gameplay, and you're getting all sorts of really cool upgrades. There's Rest in Pieces, which is an upgrade where corpses explode when they're shot.
Cool.
So you're kind of firing down, and then you just one more shot, and they'll explode and do damage to other enemies. There's like this crazy thing called Blast Module, which causes an explosion when enemies are stomped on.
Nice.
I think right now I've got like Liftoff, which is kind of like a rocket jump. So you don't just jump, you rocket jump, and it actually makes it just completely changes how you move because enemies are coming down beneath you and you're on the ground. A lot of the time you just kind of want to hop off to the side, but with the Liftoff you jump a lot higher.
Right.
So there's all these things. It's seemingly a very simple system. There's only a handful of weapons, handful of upgrades, but the combinations of those and having to deal with them on the fly, and you've only got one set of lives, and then you start at the top of the well. So it's this very, very cool kind of set of things that blend together to produce something that's always a slightly different challenge.
Is it finite? Is there a bottom to the well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There's a bottom to the well.
The end boss is just the ground.
You just land and just you break all your bones, break both your legs, and just lie on the bottom of the well, and then the next generation of rock superstar has to jump down.
Right.
So I don't know. After Sting, I guess once Sting's down at the bottom of the well, I guess John Bon Jovi jumps down. And then when John Bon Jovi's down at the bottom.
It's such a cool and sort of seemingly simple concept. I'm sort of surprised that I haven't seen it before.
Mm.
Yeah. And this is actually out of the Japanese indie scene,
Wow.
I believe.
Okay.
Which is extra cool. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of games that do, the retro aesthetic, but this one really takes it to town.
Mm.
Yeah.
This is like a sub 8-bit kind of look.
Like 7-bit?
I don't know, but there's all sorts of. That's the cool thing about the indie scene is there's all these different types of presentations like Ditherpunk is like a new
Right.
one where it's 1 bit.
Oh
is
no!
the idea.
Oh no!
Oh no! We're up to 14.
Oh no! We've moved on already.
Oh, hey, I chose this one.
This is a Luke jam.
Yeah.
Mad Max.
I really enjoyed Mad Max, and I haven't gone back to it for a while, but I got really into it.
I feel like it was your destiny to enjoy.
Yeah,
this
I
game.
think Avalanche this year have been kind of the quiet achievers, because I'm also quite enjoying Just Cause 3 on PC, and I know the console version notwithstanding.
Which one is the A team and which one's the B team?
It's hard to say, and
Because I thought Just Cause 3, the lead developer was like not Avalanche. It was some other studio like in a different country.
I think it's still Avalanche.
Is it?
Yeah.
One of the
But
Avalanches.
They do have a studio in the US. No, Mad Max. I mean, I like Mad Max anyway.
Yep.
But I thought that the world that they created, Avalanche had created, and the systems that they'd sort of inserted into it, really spoke to me. And I really love the way that when you're driving around in the car, you get this sense of scale. And this wasteland is massive, and the car's digging into the sand. It's like kicking up sand everywhere. These big like rooster tails of like desert sand, and all these little details, like the way that this little drips of fuel come out of the exhaust, and like they sort of burn away on the sand below the car. Like it's full of detail. And
This is pure Luke.
yeah, and with the way the storms roll in. I know you guys sort of you played it, right?
I did play.
Yeah.
As I've said in the podcast, this is the only game that I've ever used the screenshot function.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because the vistas and the sunsets and stuff would look so amazing.
What a skybox, Tristan.
The skybox. We could do a separate hour on the skybox, a separate video feature. But anyway, sorry.
So yeah, and it is super gamey. And sometimes that kind of turns me off. It's turned me off a few games that feel like they've overstayed their welcome. But Mad Max was because it was new, even though it felt very familiar, because it was new and it felt this kind of cross between the car sort of the GTA sort of car stuff, but also the Mordor / Batman combat stuff.
Totally.
I really enjoyed it. I haven't finished it yet, but only because I keep getting so distracted by just searching the world and finding all this stuff and all this loot and weapons and upgrading the cars. Like I said, there's so much gaminess to it. But it results in a lot to do. And they made a kind of an error, I feel, releasing this game on the exact same day as Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
That game was kind of
yeah.
a big deal.
But we'll see which of those two games made it into our top 15.
I'm also curious as to whether it was slightly kind of cut off at the knees by the fact that the movie was such a big deal and everyone was sort of comparing it to the film. I mean, certainly a lot of the stuff I was reading about was, this isn't, got the same sense of anarchy as the film and blah, blah, blah. Or do you think that maybe it helped it because there was Mad Max fever this year?
I'd
Mad
like
Max
to
fever.
think it would have helped it on account of how
Imagine if
well
the film
received
was
Fury Road
arse.
was. But it is like to be fair to this game, it really is its own thing, and it's really well made. And I think I think at the point of the year it came out, and now here we are now, and no one's talking about this game anymore. And I think that's a slight shame because it was really well made.
If only it'd come out
Is
last
really
year.
well made.
If it'd come out last year, it would have been a star.
Well, it's been in production for quite some
People would have
time.
been throwing their hands up in the air.
It's true. If it had come out last year, it would have been an absolute star, I think.
Yeah.
It's just, it's such a big year for these types of games, these big sprawling, you can do anything. You can freedom games, basically.
Yeah.
Freedom!
Loved it.
Hey, let's stick with you on this one, Luke. Rock Band
Quite
4.
sure what the hell this was.
Yeah, I forgot to tape over this. This is something old on the VHS. No, Rock Band 4. That's right. This was the year that music games sort of came back.
They did.
Obviously, they didn't hit with the kind of bang that they did
They didn't.
back in the day. No one really expected them to
No.
either. However, Rock Band 4, which we've spent some extensive time, mainly in one stretch in the office with, is still, I think, probably the best fun you can have. Same room, sort of multiplayer, beers flowing kind of gaming experiences that you can have. I know you agree, Luke.
I definitely agree.
I don't know that-
particularly because everyone else has dropped 4-player split screen.
Well, that's true. That
Yeah.
helps. Yeah, when you've got no other option, Rock Band is still there. And Guitar Hero Live didn't make this top 15,
But I know you'd like it.
I did like it, and
Yeah.
also I think it's it was a much better single player game, but
Yeah.
a terrible multiplayer game.
How did you find adjusting? Because you were saying that with Guitar Hero Live, when you got used to the new controller, the new guitar, you were like, "Oh man, this is a revelation. This is how it should be."
Yeah,
But I guess Rock Band's just a different thing. Like
it's different, and also when you're playing Rock Band, you're kind of swapping.
Yeah.
One minute you're singing, and then you're drumming, and
Yeah.
you pass out on the floor. I mean, it's
1 minute Lucy's singing, then the next minute she's singing. The minute after that, she's still singing.
No, and then the next minute she's gone.
Ah, right. She's smoke bombed.
I sort of killed it with My Eye Alone, which hot
that's
tip is not a great party song.
no.
So
But obviously, it was quite ambitious in what they were trying to do, bringing over the DLC and stuff, and it's still.
It's coming over. It's still coming
Yeah,
out.
it's
Rock
still
Band
sort of
3 just
coming
came over,
over.
which we've just put on the machine. That's another 83 tracks.
Yeah, so it's still being
January-
fleshed out.
January is marking should be Rock Band 1, 2, and Lego.
Oh, right.
Exports for all of
Yeah.
those. So if you've previously exported those, they'll appear in the game. And it's really intelligently done. Like, it's got its own menu screen. It's all done through the game itself. So it's basically just a button press. Like, you're eligible for it, bang, and then bang, it takes you to the the downloadable content screen, and then you just download it. I had to argue for the inclusion of this just simply because there hasn't really been another game this year that we played in the office that has been as impossible to stop playing. And I know it was just after a Christmas party, and I know we'd been drinking since about 10 a.m.
Yep.
But I name another game where it's like, all right, just one more, because that's what it was from about 8 p.m. maybe 9. It was just one more song. We'll just do one more song, and then 6 hours later, we were just still doing one more song.
My question to you guys is: was there a Rocket League tournament happening? Because it would have been great to see as a test. Rocket League tournament happens downstairs while you guys start Rock Band upstairs, and who goes the distance? Who goes further?
Well,
because Rocket League's been a staple of this office.
Rocket League has
throughout the
been a
year.
huge staple of this office, and I really admire what they've done, those guys, and how they really made that game work.
Yeah.
But Rock Band won because they were playing Rocket League downstairs.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
They didn't last till 2 a.m. in the morning.
Idiots.
also because it's kind of hard after like 80 beers to play Rocket League, where I feel like
It's hard to drum.
well, yeah, but
it
if
is.
you're
It
singing,
is.
you know.
It's easy to
you
sing.
can individually, bump the difficulty level down, which is what Luke was doing when no one was looking. he was good at blimping people, and then he was just like, that's the expression.
But yeah, so much fun.
Yeah, it is awesome, and we're
there's
sort of
so much content.
and we're just finishing on the little Van Halen DLC, which is the ideal way to go.
That's how
out.
it made into the top 15.
Yes, that's right. Any game that had
In a
Van
single
Halen in it.
stroke.
And we move on to Assault Android Cactus number 12.
Aussie inclusion.
Yeah.
Yes, an
Yay.
Aussie game made the list.
Yay!
Which I'm not saying that as if it's a surprise, because this Australian indie scene produces many good games actually. But this is one of my favorites for the year. It was in development for many years. We saw it at several PAX AUs in a row.
And the weirdest thing about it is that even in those older PAXs, it seemed really polished.
It
Yeah.
felt great.
Do you know what I mean?
It felt really
and
great.
it seemed just super slick.
I
And
think and I think that speaks to the fact that they had this very kind of accessible, very fun kernel right from the very beginning, and from that point on, it was about building out content, but also the balance. Because what this game does fantastically well is it's inspired by bullet hell shooters, right? But it's not punishing like bullet hell shooters.
Right.
It doesn't demand that you have to do these perfect things. You can get knocked down, and then you can just kind of get back up, right? So the entire game is very much beatable by pretty much anyone. There are definitely some spikes. There's a couple of bosses that are quite difficult and need specific strategies. And obviously, of the 9 androids, some are better at certain fights than others.
Right.
But the reality is that that's just the entry point for the game. That's just the fun kind of first few hours of the game, and then from that point on, it becomes about combos and it becomes about high score chasing, and that's where that bullet hell inspiration comes in, because you have to be very precise. You have to be very you have to target things in specific orders. You have to use your secondary fire in very specific ways. For instance, like the kind of final goal aim is to get through an entire level without getting knocked down once and keeping an unbroken kill combo going throughout the entire level. And that essentially means you have to be killing an enemy every couple of seconds. But a lot of the characters, they're switching to their secondary, much more powerful attack. If you time that wrong, you'll lose your combo chain simply by switching to your secondary weapon.
Right.
So you have to kind of soften up enemies, and there are ways to kind of still be able to use it. And so it's very, very clever the way it's designed. And yeah, 9 protagonists, and they're all really quite different, very different combinations of weapons, demanding very, very different strategies. It's an excellent game. And another thing I should kind of note, which you can see here, is levels just evolve constantly. There's a lot of variety in the level design, not just across levels, but within levels themselves. The floors will reconfigure themselves, conveyor belts will start up and stop, and throughout it all, you're just getting swarmed by enemies.
I love how overwhelming it is. It's like it makes the Batman games kind of look tame in comparison.
Yeah, it's
when
so
it comes to just
overwhelming.
like actually the overwhelming odds of swarms of enemies.
One thing, it's not indicated by this vision, but it's a 4-player.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
So you got up to 4-player co-op on top of this. And so that's, again, like if you just want to play it for fun, then, you can just hop in with a friend and you'll have a great time. But yeah, like even in the early access period, just looking at the leaderboards and the discussion around the game, there was this hardcore community of people dissecting the way the scoring worked, dissecting different strategies for how to maximize their scores. And there's just so much nuance here, even just simple stuff like when you do switch from your primary weapon to your secondary, it's kind of like a dodge move. Right. So you can actually use that to kind of dodge through projectiles and dodge enemy fire. So very, very cool game design. Really like it.
Awesome. Number 11, everybody's gone to the Rapture. This is the game that we played at E3 this year.
It was the game that we played at E3 and we sort of played for about 5 minutes, which
what
is just
a bizarre game to
but
play
it was,
at E3.
You're absolutely right. But everything that because you don't necessarily go hands-on with everything big at E3. But out of everything that we played, everything else was kind of spectacle-based, and this was a thing where it was actually you stepped into this other world, and that kind of stood out in a way amidst all that other, gunfire.
I think also just immediately, you can see here just that the Chinese room has just created this incredibly sort of unique world in the video game space. Insofar as we've never really seen this kind of old British town realized
the village from Hot Fuzz.
It's like the village from Hot Fuzz, but realized with such incredible detail. If you went up to that sign, you would see the way that it was painted. Do you know what I mean? Everything is just being so beautifully realized.
For an indie project, the artistry and what they've managed to achieve is pretty staggering. Actually.
Yeah. And what I love about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is you just saw a name there, Jeremy. It's just the way that they sort of layer these individual stories into this kind of really rich and at times very disturbing tapestry. And as you play through, you realize the relationships that all these people have with one another, and at times it's really quite devastating.
It's very affecting storytelling. Yeah, and it's this amazing thing where you've got this framework of this kind of sci-fi apocalypse event storyline, but it's ultimately driven by characterization and relationships and the politics within the village, and there's all these flashbacks that aren't necessarily that can be from months prior. And even though there's a broadly linear sequence, you play through character by character in a broad sense, the storytelling jumps all over the place, and if you kind of search out a little bit, you'll find extra snippets, and you have to piece it together yourself. And so my experience playing with this game was I played maybe an hour of it, and then I was just I've been playing this wrong, and I kind of started to understand what the structure was, and then I just started again. And it's a game that I now want to play again. Because the more I think about it after I finished it, there's unanswered questions, but I have a pretty good idea of it. But it's just such a moving, detailed, just well-told story, great characters. I really love everything about this, to be honest.
And one other thing that's really important to note about this game, which is just so often overlooked when we're talking about, when we're praising games, is that everybody's gone to the Rapture has the most beautiful score of a game I think I've played in many years. Yep. Like Jessica Curry is the composer, and she just this incredible sort of this chorus, this chorale sort of thing, as well as this just beautiful instrumental stuff. And it's constantly, as the game itself is constantly shifting, so is the score. So the score is constantly changing and evolving, just as the game world is.
And it really swells at the end of a chapter as well.
Yeah. It's used so effectively. And then they have all these other really nice touches, like these like quick day-night cycles and these sequences where it's suddenly just dark and there's this illuminated path in front of you, and you have this kind of pause to kind of consider all the stuff you've just learnt before you move on to a new character perspective. But yeah, look, a lot of my favorite games this year, like Beginner's Guide, you get to the end and you just think about them for days, and you ponder over what it all means.
Great. That was timed to perfection. Number 10, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Lucy, you reviewed this game for IGN.
I did, and
enjoyed it immensely.
I did enjoy it immensely. I think it's probably the most polished game I've played all year. I think it's
up there. It's up there.
Big call.
It's up there.
It's also just a really...
She obviously didn't play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5.
It's a really fun... totally exhilarating adventure game.
Yep.
And it is that way from beginning to end. It never lets up, and I love that about Rise of the Tomb Raider. Basically, what the guys at Crystal Dynamics, guys and girls have done at Crystal Dynamics, is they've taken everything that was great about the 2013 reboot and just made it better and just done more of it. So it's nothing...
But also done less in some instances.
But also done less in some
Sorry,
instances.
And then in other instances, about the same.
Oh, shut up! my point is, like, the gore really turned me off the reboot.
Yeah.
So it's good that's been toned down as well.
They've toned that they've
less
toned that
impaling on through the jaw of spikes and what have you.
But I guess what Crystal Dynamics realized after that 2013 reboot was that people were really drawn to the puzzle solving, which of course was such a fundamental part of the original Tomb Raider.
Because if we want to play Uncharted, we'll play Uncharted.
Exactly. And so that's been far more sort of prevalent in Rise of the Tomb Raider. So there are lots more tombs to discover, and those tombs are very much. You're not guided through those experiences at all. I mean, you're really kind of just, it's you versus the elements and versus some old piece of machinery built millions of years ago. And I love that sense of kind of awe, because it really does hark back to that 1997 original where you're just like, wow, I feel like I've discovered something incredible and ancient and silent, and no one's been here before me. And I just think they did such a wonderful job in recapturing that in this game. I mean, I would go so far as to say it's my favorite since the 1997 Tomb Raider. It's my favorite Tomb Raider game.
Awesome.
But there might be another Tomb Raider game on this list. We will see.
Unfortunately, Microsoft Mad Maxed it by releasing it on the same day as Fallout 4.
Right. They did.
Don't know if the sales figures are in for that one.
Yeah, it is a real shame. It's a shame because, reading some of the comments of the review, a lot of people are just saying, I can't play it because I don't have an Xbox. Right. So the exclusive sort of side of things is kind of a shame, and the fact that it was released on the same day as Fallout 4. But I really can't stress how fantastic this game is, and also grounded by a brilliant performance by Camilla Luddington as Lara. And Lara as a character, I think, in Rise of the Tomb Raider has never been more interesting and more sort of... I mean, she's got this kind of self-deprecating kind of edge to her, and a little bit of a darker side in this game. She's far more of a sort of, and I hate this is such a cliche, but she's far more of a three-dimensional character than I think she's ever been. And I think that's just going to continue, because now they've really, the Survivor story was told in 2013. This story is more about her obsession and Lara's obsessive side. And I'm really, there's so much more to do with this character now that they've rebooted her and brought her back to life from the sort of stark polygon sex symbol she once was.
And the series as a whole is absolutely moving in the right direction, which is kind of critical. It's building momentum rather than like we're going to look forward to a new entry in this franchise, because we feel like it's going in the direction we want it to go.
Absolutely, and I think the fact that this game, really sort of built on the strengths of the 2013 reboot shows that they know what works.
Yep.
Now, number 9, Broforce, which is, of course, the game based upon IGN's Roundhouse video series. It's.
I love those. They should go back to making those.
It is obviously a homage to 80s action movies. Luke, you reviewed it for IGN.
I did.
Loved it.
Built by some South Africans.
Oh. I actually did not know that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Based in South Africa.
Diplomatic immunity.
I really, really enjoyed this. It's so imaginative, and it was in early access for ages. So the result of that is that it's really tight. The gameplay itself is really tight. And that's crucial for a platformer that demands such quick reactions, and it's one hit, insta death, basically.
Yep.
But I guess the joy that you glean from that is the fact that every time you die, you come back as a new character. You come back as a new bro.
A new pun.
Yeah, a new pun.
Yeah.
And
any games that have had that as a central kind of mechanic before?
I'm not.
It's pretty interesting, right?
It is interesting, and I wouldn't pretend to know that that's not the case, because there might be. But and there are a lot of them. I can't remember the exact number, but there's over 30 or so characters, and every one of them has a different primary attack and secondary attack, and they're all more well suited to one thing or the other. So here we're watching right now, that's Cherry Broling.
It's amazing.
Based on Planet Terror, so she shoots down. So she actually proved to be really, really, really useful.
Good at Downwell.
For one particular boss character, or in this case, I'm just going to destroy the ground because I know there's a large boss coming. And if you destroy all the ground below the characters, the
boss will just drop through?
They fall through the level, yeah.
That's cool.
But there's all these kinds of other things. So, like, there's another boss character. Actually, there's a pair of them, and there's two large snakes, and we don't have the on-screen stuff right now, so I'll make it quick. But they come up through the ground. So any character that has the ability to burrow through the ground quickly, like B.A. Broacus has a flamethrower that just burns ground away. So that you can get right up. There's all these strategies. So it really rewards thinking laterally about how to attack these certain enemies and how to use the environments and all that
But
kind
you've
of
got
stuff.
to do that on the fly.
Okay, yeah, but here is the point, right? And I hate to spoil it for people, but it's been out for several months now. Here is the point where Broforce went from a really enjoyable platforming game to a really, really enjoyable platforming game that I just adored. Because the last level of the game is not a combat-orientated level. It turns the melee button into a high-five button, and you need to go back to Washington. And then you're high-fiving people in the streets as Broforce because they're all celebrating the fact that you've emerged victorious against A, a terrorist army, B, marauding aliens, and C, Satan himself. And several hundred demons and all kind of stuff. I love the art style. This is brilliant because it's mostly taking the piss out of action movies, but it does, in this instance, take the piss out of one particular video game.
Yes.
And let's just have a look for a moment at what's coming along here. Yeah, there we go.
Literally taking the piss out.
But yeah, no, Broforce was, it's huge. It's huge fun. And they've only continued to add to it since it came out. They added a bunch of Christopher Lambert bros.
Nice.
So we had Brolander,
of course,
for instance, and there was also Broden, who was actually Raiden from Mortal Kombat.
Right.
Remember how Christopher Lambert was in Mortal Kombat? Yeah. Anyway.
That's his 2 roles.
Yeah, that's it. What else is Christopher Lambert in?
I don't know. Anyways, number 8, Tales from the Borderlands, a Telltale Games
I love how you've got
series.
all formats because
I
it pretty much just did come out on every single format known to man, as Telltale Games generally do.
AKA probably Telltale's best game to date, but totally out of the blue.
I don't think I would say it's their best game to date, but I would say it's certainly a really strong game. Did you finish it?
It's up there. No, I still haven't finished it, but I'm a fair way in. I haven't lucied it, but I'm fair way in. I just think it's amazing. But yeah, you have finished it, so you go ahead.
Oh, the final episode's great. It actually does a very good job of tying up the story and has, some kind of ramifications for things you've done in the past. So it's a very, very strong ending. It could have gone either way. I felt it ended really well. But what this was so successful at doing was making me really interested in the world of Borderlands. Making me really fascinated by Handsome Jack as a character and this dichotomy between Mad Max Wastelands and kind of corporate excess and vault hunting, all this kind of stuff. Obviously, Handsome Jack is like a side character with Reese and Fiona as the two leads. And you're hopping back and forth. You're controlling both of them. Like the game tells you, obviously, when you're switching back and forth.
Right.
But they're telling one story between the two of them, so you're seeing it from both perspectives. And they're both very likable protagonists. Wonderful voice acting. You won't be surprised to hear that Troy Baker and Nolan North are both in this game.
Of course.
Contractually, of course, that's in
every game.
It's every game.
But what I liked about what you just said is that both characters were very likable and both were kind of idiotic in their own way. And I like the fact that that was the case. It wasn't too very slick. Sort of that they were both kind of bumbling fools, and I quite like. I mean, you could play them.
I wouldn't say that about Fiona.
Fiona is a bumbling fool. She's very arrogant.
But okay, yeah. Well, I kind of feel like Fiona is trying to find her feet in the world, and she's good at what she does. But yeah, I guess she is bumbling a little bit, and Reese is a bit of a goofball.
Yeah, which makes them likable.
Yeah, which makes them likable, and just great wider supporting cast too. Like, you've got Reese's best friend and Fiona's sister, and then, like, Loaderbot, which is this mech that kind of pops up, like, really, really interesting, really fun. It kind of switches gears between actually developing characters and developing the world and storytelling, and then just really dark moments and really goofy moments. Like, we've talked about in the Pubcast before, this whole bro fist sequence, which is hilarious. But then there's also stuff like, you need to pass a retinal scanner, and so you have to gouge out, like, a dead dude's eye with a spoon, and you're actually, like, doing the motions with the controller, and it's from the dead guy's perspective, so you're just digging in and blood spurting, and
it's got such a great, like, anarchic sense of humor, this game, that was so unexpected.
Yep.
And I've said this before in the Podcast, but we saw little hints of that in The Walking Dead. Just a little glimpse of the idea that Telltale could be really funny.
Yeah.
And
they definitely turned it up.
It's really dialed up in Tales from Borderlands.
And also, fantastic soundtrack.
Yeah.
Not only does the game end on a first aid kit track, which suits the vibe of the game wonderfully, but the credit sequences for each episode, which kick in like maybe 10, 15 minutes into the episode, they're just always really stylish, really good choice of song to complement it. Super cool.
Oh, take the wheel, Luke.
Speaking of super cool, here's some cars, guys. Yes, it's Forza Motorsport 6, and I got to choose one car game. So if you're from Slightly Mad Studios or from Codemasters, you're like, hey, I thought you liked our stuff. It's like, I love your stuff. It's great. But this one has a Tirana in it.
Yeah.
So what more needs to be said?
And mates.
Yeah, it's got to push it over the edge, right? No, man, this has sucked a lot of my time away this year. I keep returning to it because they keep supporting it with monthly new cars and that kind of stuff. But yeah, man, there's so much to like about this game. There's a few things that kind of still, need some work, but just the way they've really improved the overall experience for Forza 5 was good. And particularly the way when they added the weather, when they added the night racing.
Yeah.
And the way in which they did it. I know it's not dynamic, so it's not... I guess it doesn't really... It doesn't change on the flies and that kind of stuff. But it does affect the racing in a real meaningful way.
Right.
Because the water is a physical thing on the track.
Yep.
And you hit the puddles and so on and so forth. But yeah, just... I feel like I repeat myself about this a lot, but the way... They curate cars, Now, there's well over 500 cars in the game at this point.
That's crazy.
And when people make it a numbers game, they're like, oh, Gran Turismo's got 1,200 cars. No.
Yeah, low-res ones or something.
Gran Turismo, yeah, but it doesn't have...
Those cars look like Lara's boobs from the original Tomb Raider.
But it's somehow it manages to have fewer of the cars that I feel like people care about the most from different places around the world,
All I want is a moon buggy. Sorry, I always bring that up.
But yeah, they just have this
Turismo's
knack for choosing cars, and coming at it from my perspective as an Australian, their support for car culture here is fantastic, and it's definitely the best in the industry. The way they have the V8 supercars in there, they have a bunch of other real cool cult cars from Australia, but it's not that's not unique to us, Like if you're Swedish, right? Forza caters for you. Forza has Volvos. It's got cool Volvo touring cars in there that you can't race in other games at this point. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's there's something about the way their philosophy to like the garage where they want to make sure that as many fans around the world as possible have something in there that they want. And they've always said that there are the three most important cars in any racing game is the first car you had, the car you have now, and the car you want most. So that's what they try to put in the game. So yeah, I think there's a few things that I'd like to see come into Forza that allow you to better exploit the sheer amount of content that they come with.
What do you mean?
So there's no real way of individually choosing all the cars you want to race against, like creating really interesting custom races.
Oh, okay.
There's some small things you can do to kind of do that, but it needs some more options.
Right.
But overall, this really is, and it has been for quite some time, it is really sort of, I feel, the high watermark for sort of the car PG genre.
Yeah.
On console, and people will like swear blind that there are better racing games, and I won't disagree. Project Cars is a fantastic racing game. People love iRacing and all that kind of stuff. But I think the car PG really, it's accessible, it's fun, it's Forza.
Nice. It's accessible, it's fun, it's Forza. Number 6 is Her Story,
which we can all talk about because we've all played.
We all played it.
This is in my top 5 for the year.
Yeah, I agree.
That says everybody's gone to the Rapture, actually.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, I guess, in the way that the story is told in pieces, out of sequence. I suppose you have maybe a little bit more agency because you're actively searching for things. But yeah, I love this game.
Yeah,
I think it's amazing.
That's the thing, is it's a game that is centered around this searching a database mechanic. There's like 271 clips or something that you can access, but you only get the first 5 hits back.
Right, yeah.
So that means that the stuff that has more story information is further down the list, so you need to enter more specific search terms to get to it. It's the cleverest system. It manages to put the narrative flow entirely in your hands, but still just like knock you out with these like big revelatory moments, these big twists and things.
Yeah.
And it just still feels really well paced, and but you also feel like a detective.
Yeah, that's it. Right? That's what I like the most.
Because you're making notes. You're like, okay, that's a lead, and so you've got to make sure you explore every potential of that lead. Yeah. But then, you often get multiple leads at the same time, and then they open other leads, and you've really got to be as methodical as possible, and then try and collate all that information, and then you're dealing with interviews that were taken over several weeks. So there's time codes to pay attention to, so you know the flow in which, like the order in which things were said. There's a lot that you're kind of keeping tabs on, but it just works so well.
And what really helps is obviously the interface. Because look at this. I mean, you're right there. Look at this kind of old PC that you're looking at, and it works too. I mean,
this is 1994.
You click into everything, and it brings something up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's so clever. I think it's the most original game of the year, and I think that I want to see more games like this. I mean, it can't stop here. It was just like, it was such a clever conceit.
Yeah.
It can't stop here.
I'm just glad that the full motion video rage is coming back.
That's right.
No, but it's
Well,
also...
it's funny. It's set in 1994,
Oh, yeah,
around
true,
the time
true.
that the full motion video game Rage
I think
was.
you guys were saying, maybe not during this, I think it was prior to this recording, but how everybody's gone to the Rapture as a game that people who don't normally play games could play. Same deal with this. Like,
Yeah.
you could,
Yeah,
I
totally.
could easily sit my mum down at this and say, play
Definitely.
this.
And
Love
she
it.
would be
Yeah.
totally into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, interestingly enough, everybody's gone to the Rapture is like an indie that manages to produce something with kind of AAA production values,
True.
whereas this is like a scrappy indie. It's performance driven.
Yeah.
It's writing driven. I mean, so is everybody's gone to the Rapture, absolutely. But this shows that there's so many platforms to put games on
Yeah.
that you can do something with a really low budget and just a very, very clever structure.
And Sam Barlow's such a gifted storyteller, obviously, because we all came out of this totally divided
Yeah, that's right.
as to what
it
actually
all meant,
happened, which I think is fantastic. I mean, it was a very complex story, and everyone had a very different experience with it.
I loved how I love anything, particularly this, where you sit down and you're immediately intimidated. You're like, how am I going to do this? And I know that you guys already played it, and I'm like, well, I don't even know where to start. But then you just choose a word,
Yeah.
That's right.
and then you just go from there, and then
Yeah.
it just unfolds,
Yeah.
and anyone can do it
Yeah.
And-
once you just choose a word.
Yeah. An
Yeah.
awesome performance from
Yeah.
the actress as well.
Yeah, Viva Seifert. Barlow described it as a sculptural way of viewing a story, which I just thought was a
Yeah.
really elegant way to put it.
That's cool. We should have just gone with that. Number 5, Lara Croft GO. Now, I deliberately opened on the options screen purely because that's just one thing in this game that's very evocative of the original Tomb Raider games. And Lucy, I mean, you and I both finished this. You somewhere in the Mediterranean, me somewhere between the Sutherland Shire and Town Hall Station. So different experiences, I
I
suppose.
played this all the way through when I was on holiday, just for some context on that comment. It's great. It's fantastic, and it's pure puzzles. I mean, this is pure puzzles.
This is, to be honest with you, though, like, and I agree with everything you said about Rise of the Tomb Raider, but this is my kind of Tomb Raider game, because ultimately Rise of the Tomb Raider is an action-adventure game. Yes, they brought more tombs into it this time around than they did previously, but it's still not really the focus, whereas this is purely about puzzle solving. And even like this kind of stilted movement of her, which is what the original games were like, it is part of the gameplay in this, in the sense that when you move, the enemies move. It's kind of a turn-based kind of thing.
Which is like, just like Hitman Go. So
Hitman Go,
this
well,
is
that's the
this
whole
is
reason I
their
played it.
thing,
I
yeah.
love Hitman Go, yeah. And it's a different, in many ways, it's a different style of game to Hitman Go. But yeah, I don't really play that many games on mobile anymore, but this was definitely one of them. No, but this was easily the best mobile game that I played.
But again, in a way where the puzzles get really tough.
Yeah.
And sort of at times they felt really insurmountable. But because I was traveling around, I didn't have access to Wi-Fi.
Right.
So I had to actually
You're on your
not
own.
cheat. Which meant that every single time I solved one, and I eventually solved them all, felt like this incredible victory.
Yeah.
Especially near the pointy end where things really ramp up
Yeah.
and they just get really devilish.
Yeah. I mean, I'm making it look easy here, but I cut out all the times that I failed each attempt. But yeah, I don't know. There's not that much more to say about it, really.
Well, no,
We're
I
just
mean
padding.
it's just another example of sort of going back to basics with the character and with the franchise and how Lara is really at her best, and this series is at its best when it's focused on puzzle solving.
And no
because
human enemies.
no human enemies. You've just got these strange dragon lizards and
snakes and
this
all
big
kinds of stuff.
Chinese dragon and
The
stuff
boss
like
fight's
that.
really cool as well, actually.
Yeah, just really original ways,
Yeah.
and it's sort of like Hearthstone, really original ways of fighting bosses. That sort of like, how Hearthstone will say, run away from this, escape this tavern using our systems.
Yep.
This is exactly what Lara Croft GO does. So it presents you with this huge, gigantic enemy that you'd usually defeat with guns, and it says solve this puzzle according to our systems in order to beat this giant monster. It's just really, it's a really original way of sort of that traditional boss battle of tackling that.
And it's been, relatively well supported too. They've just released a bunch of extra levels for free for anyone who owns it.
How much is it?
On those. I think it was only a few bucks.
Yeah, a couple bucks.
Yeah, I think.
It'd probably be like $6 or something.
It's probably, I guess so. You know what?
Well worth the money.
Yeah.
Tristan, I can't help but notice, did you get footage of her doing the handstand climb? Because that's really
I was in a rush.
We just needed like 5 seconds of footage.
But you're right, it does have the handstand climb. Another, classic Tomb Raider.
It's such a pretty game as well. I love this very stylized but clean presentation.
Yeah, it's awesome. Moving on to, this is a bit of a biggie. Number
I just
4,
wish
Fallout
that
4.
we'd had time to just capture Luke playing the game.
Yeah.
Just flying through the sky.
But it wouldn't have
God
been
mode
representative of your average playthrough.
Yeah. Fallout 4.
Fallout 4, fantastic. I mean, again, it was one we all played and one we all really enjoyed. I think Luke and I might be the only ones still playing it.
I'm going to go back.
Luke in his God mode, me like
Peasant mode.
scrabbling for bottle caps in peasant mode.
I'm not a god. I'm just super, super rich.
He's not the god. He's a god.
He's in Donald Trump mode.
So again, just for anyone who has not listened to our recent podcast, Luke is exploiting all the little...
He will not patch the game.
I have not. I've turned off automatic updates.
all the little cheats.
I go offline when I play Fallout.
He smashed his modem with a hammer.
Because Fallout did ship with Fallout 4 did ship with these exploits.
Yeah.
But as a game on the whole, it's incredibly immersive. It's incredibly addictive. It's like Fallout 3. I mean, it's like Fallout 3.5. It doesn't really revolutionize the wheel, but it does what a Fallout game does so well, which is give you a huge amount of freedom, build a really cohesive world, and basically challenge you to play it properly and assemble a whole bunch of cool weapons from scrap.
Everybody's using exploits on some level.
Not
right?
me.
But that's what the nature of a video game, especially an open world video game, is. You really have to abuse. You're not abusing the systems, but you are using the systems in your favor as much as you possibly can to gain an advantage on the world. So I think that Luke is just at one end of the sliding scale. I think you and Luke are more alike than you'd like to admit,
How
Lucy.
very dare you!
How dare you?
No, how very dare you?
It's just because we're products of an era where games were supposed to be very cruel to us, and they didn't want us to finish them. So any game that allows me to get an edge on it, and to allow me to tell it that I'm boss,
Right.
bang.
Right, so you don't want these robots coming around, knocking on your door, telling you when to brush your teeth.
No.
You're the boss of the robots.
One cool thing I think is worth mentioning is the whole sort of building your settlement side of Fallout 4.
The bit that I ignored.
Yeah, I've ended up getting a bit addicted to it.
Really?
And wanting more people coming to my sanctuaries and stuff like that. So I've grown a bit fond of that whole mechanic and making sure that everyone's got enough to eat and building radio towers to get more people and stuff like that. I mean, I do like that. And I like...
think that's absolutely a good inclusion in this
Yeah, and I like that it's, it's just a cool way if you don't feel like going out onto the battlefield, just to, chill out in the world, pass some time, have a chat to the folks in your village, and yeah, it's great. It's really good fun. And to be honest,
Just be neighbourly.
I actually haven't encountered, and I've said this for so long, like tomorrow when I play it, I'm going to encounter a huge bug.
Yeah.
But I haven't. I'm playing on Xbox One.
This is Luke playing through right now.
Oh, right, there you go. I thought it might be. But I haven't encountered any major glitches or anything like that, so it's all been pretty smooth ride for me thus far.
It's all been pretty minor stuff for me, but regular minor stuff.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what would help Fallout 4? Cars.
It's a damn good point. Yeah, a Tirana. Needs
That's
a
what-
fucking Tirana.
That's what fast travel is for, Luke.
Yeah, Luke.
Imagine if Forza had that. You just press fast travel on the starting grid.
Then you win.
Then you win, yeah.
Number 3, Batman Arkham Knight. Now, Lucy, you said before that Rise of the Tomb Raider was the most polished game of the year. I think this is its closest rival.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Almost to its detriment. I mean, it's so polished and so tutorial-driven to the very end. It's very slick. But it's awesome. It's awesome. And I think elevated to new heights of awesomeness thanks to the inclusion of the Joker.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose we all expected he'd be in there in some form, but he's in it so much and he's always creeps up on you.
It's really well done.
Yeah.
And I think, we're definitely far enough along to be able to speak about it more than we did at the time, which was not, I believe.
Yeah, well, you don't want to. Yeah,
I like those little moments and how they were integrated into the game so seamlessly, where you'd just be free roaming and you just get to the top of a building, and you just
pan the camera around. Whoa,
yeah, and he's just like perched on a railing, just sort of sitting there with his leg up, or just in a vent, just around the corner.
or Man Bat. I mean,
that Man Bat thing was
true.
But although that got spoiled for me because Tristan.
Yeah, I spoiled it for you.
Oh, okay.
Mentioned it was
I went
happen.
out of my way to spoil it for Luke. Cheat your way out of this.
Yeah, the only stuff that annoyed me is what we're seeing on screen now. Is I thought the Batmobile was a great inclusion. I just thought it was a bit too much of it.
Yeah,
which I think is
towards the
a
end.
common consensus.
Yep.
But on the whole, it's a awesomely fun Batman game. It was one that I was just compelled to finish as soon as I picked it up, which I think speaks volumes.
Yep.
And just really really cool sort of weird sensibility to it, which is what a Batman world should have. It's just a strange sort of macabre dark side. Which is, of course, is where the Joker comes in, but there are lots of twists and turns and that sort of thing in it as well. And I just think that Rocksteady's told a really good story.
You do feel like the most dangerous and badass person in the whole city as Batman, which he is, obviously. That's the whole nature of Batman. But the game does a great job of making you feel like you can just tackle any scenario. It overloads you with gadgets, most of which I probably didn't use enough.
But thankfully, you can still get through without using.
But you can just brute force your way. You're just like, I'm just going to pound all these guys and knock them all out.
Just pounding some guys.
And how glorious does it look?
Oh, it looks amazing. I mean, this is obviously not the PC version, which would be a stuttering mess. But it looks fantastic on console. I also think that in lieu of Nintendo just releasing very occasional trailers, this is the closest that Zelda fans are going to get to the sort of Zelda style of, obviously not this particular moment, but just the way that you sort of get new gadgets and discover new things. It's all from the sort of Zelda playbook, and I love that because I'm a huge Zelda nerd and a Batman fan, so it all works out well. And anyone else got any more thoughts before we kick on to the Lucy 4 minutes of power?
I love the way his suit and his Batmobile become more and more damaged and scratched and shredded over the course of the whole evening.
Yeah,
that was a strength.
Yeah.
Who's that guy?
That's Krusty
and I also
Clown.
love the ability to keep returning to GCPD. There you go. Like he just pushed
all the way down
around the world. You kept returning to the headquarters, the GCPD, and there's more and more people in the cells. And so there was like
everyone you captured.
There was like a visual reminder that you'd done stuff.
Yeah, so slick.
Yeah, it's my 4 minutes.
Lucy,
time to shine.
This is one of the first big releases of the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was.
And certainly the biggest PlayStation 4 exclusive.
Yes, definitely.
And/or the only one that wasn't a remaster or.
Until Dawn.
Until Dawn.
I'm sorry.
Everybody's gone to the Rapture, which was PS4 exclusive.
Yeah,
I mean that
Tearaway is debatable.
Anyways,
Bloodborne. Yeah. So this is my personal favorite of the year. I thought that it would be cool to show the battle between your hunter and father Gascoigne, who is this creature we are seeing now. Well, this is him in his beast mode, because I think this best represents why I love Bloodborne. Not only is it physically, you can see just not only is it really sort of graceful and kind of like every battle you have in Bloodborne is like a dance. Like the sort of battleground is kind of like a stage, like as you sort of dance between these headstones, and then you've got this sort of flat kind of area up here, and you have to draw them up. I mean, every single battle is so dramatic and just so kind of beautiful in its way. And also really difficult. And I think that,
I get that part.
I think Father Gascoigne is a good example because he is the second boss I encountered, and he took me probably honestly about 30 tries to get him down. And by the end, I actually cried. When I defeated him, I actually cried with joy. Like, I was so happy. And it's testament to how exciting and seductive this game is that I kept, like, after defeating him after 30 tries, I kept wanting to play. Like, I was hooked. At this point, I was completely hooked. And what is also really remarkable about Bloodborne is that every character tells a story. Every character, every boss, there's a story behind it. And in Father Gascoigne's case, he was an old he was an old priest who became a hunter, and you can actually, like, you find his wife's body during this battle, and you can talk to his daughters behind locked windows, because you never see, you know, Bloodborne is all about the sort of romanticism of what you can't see. So it's all about people talking to you behind windows that you don't, just voices coming from dark corners that you never see, but that tell these amazingly sort of intricate and devastating stories. And in this instance, you were given a music box by one of his daughters, and she tells you, Papa used to play this for us so he would remember who we were.
Right.
And during this battle, if you use the music box, for a moment he becomes very momentarily, and I say very momentarily because Bloodborne enthusiasts debate whether or not to use the music box in this battle. He becomes very momentarily stunned, just because and anguished, because he remembers very briefly that he had this family. And it's just...
And then you murder him.
And then, but you murder him, it's not... It's all about the life force, which is the blood vials and the blood souls. It's not even souls. I played Dark Souls 2 after this, so I forgot what the actual life force is called. But it's all about the blood coursing through his veins. So it's not necessarily that you murder anyone. Right. It's far more sort of romantic than that.
Okay.
And it's just one of the things that I really love about this game is that it's just so beautiful. It's just so beautiful, and it is really gory, and it is really tough, but it's beautiful.
I thought you were going to finish that video before they defeated the boss. You just made it.
Just made it. And now here we are, number one.
So Bloodborne was very much the game that was your obsession this year, Lucy.
It was.
But the reason that Hearthstone is our number one video is partly because it's the Pubcast. So, Card Corner. Looking at... Come on, Lucy.
Cards.
Stacking.
Cards.
What's that?
Cards.
Hey, everyone, let's have some...
Card Corner.
Oh, damn it. I stepped on that.
Mono.
But this year was also the year that I discovered Hearthstone. So as much as I would say in the Mediterranean. Well, no, actually,
so much of Lucy's gaming was done in the Mediterranean this year.
It was in airports actually,
okay.
because I needed to have Wi-Fi.
Yep.
So this is my most played game last year,
yep,
and my most played game again this year. And then you got on board as well this year and kind of get where I'm coming from. Hearthstone's it's an amazing thing. Like, I mean, there's games as services, games as evolving things is very much just what we expect these days. But it is nonetheless kind of cool to be on board with something and just see it evolve and see the meta game just constantly shifting. And that's what this year has been like with Hearthstone. It's changed an enormous amount over the course of the year. We've had the Black Rock Mountain adventure, we've had the Grand Tournament expansion, and then most recently, and probably the reason that I argued to put this at number one, is we've had the League of Explorers, which has really fundamentally changed Hearthstone. It's slowed it down a lot, and it's introduced some really powerful new cards that have had a massive impact on the way the game's played. So right now, playing Hearthstone, it feels fresh all over again because it's not feeling stagnant. It's feeling like you're not too sure what to expect. And so there's a lot of variety in the game right now.
And even after the last solo adventure, it's changed for me. And I've only been playing for, you know, several months. Like, it is constantly evolving, and every single time that a new expansion is introduced, it feels really fresh. And I loved the latest expansion as well for its single-player content.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at here. We're just looking at me just smashing one of the bosses on normal difficulty, and it's not particularly challenging, but I needed a clip that was about 4 minutes long. So that's what you're getting. But yeah, there were some really interesting boss battles. You had things that they'd never done before, like just having to last a certain number of times, like because you're trying to escape a collapsing temple. You're running away from them. You're riding a minecart. You're doing all this kind of Indiana Jones style stuff, and that was the flavor here. And this was also the first time that we saw Blizzard and Team 5, the development team, breaking away from World of Warcraft in a really major way.
Right.
The previous expansion was kind of set after events in World of Warcraft, so it was a bit different. But this is like ties into World of Warcraft, but instead of trying to recreate raid encounters and boss encounters from World of Warcraft, all the boss battles are largely, just their own inventions. It's allowed them to do some really, really fun stuff. So yeah, Hearthstone just continues to be a heap of fun.
Yeah.
It's a great game.
It is, and it's a great game because as you said, it continues to change. It continues to change and become a new game. And as you said, like everything I'm playing now, and it's just so much slower, and I'm playing with a completely different deck than I was playing a few months ago.
Yep.
And it's just the whole rhythm of the metagame has totally changed, and I love that. And you're right. I mean, this is how we should be talking about games now, because there is. We've been looking at very sort of traditional kind of single player experiences in this top 15, but this, games don't stay still anymore.
No.
This one is a game like Hearthstone just becomes a whole brand new beast every time a new expansion is introduced.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got the constructed scene, but then you've also got Arena, which is the mode where you draft your deck from choices of random cards. And that changes an enormous amount with every expansion because they offer like a bonus chance to find the new cards when a new set comes out. And so that's just constantly shifting. So you've got Constructed always changing, and then Arena's always changing. And yeah, I kind of think it's cool that Blizzard are managing to kind of wrangle the direction the game's going in a positive way with this most recent expansion, because it was quite fast and aggressive. And they've managed to slow it down just with the inclusion of like a handful of cards. And then this year we've also seen like a bunch of new mechanics, some of which haven't worked out that well, like Inspire and Joust aren't that used that much, but they still add more flavor to the game. But the new mechanic with this one was Discover, where you it's basically controlled RNG, where you get presented with a choice of 3 cards and you choose the one that you think is best going to fit what you want to do. And so every time they add new cards, every time they add new mechanics, every time they add cards that kind of allow you to tech against new mechanics, it just increases the depth of what's going on in the game. And so I think that's another reason why I wanted this to be our game, number one game, is because it was incredibly deep from the beginning, and it just continues to get deeper. And there's just a lot of knowledge required to be a really great Hearthstone player. Not that I am there.
And I am certainly not there.
But I love that challenge. I love trying to kind of master what's going on. And I should also say, I think the other reason that it's a cheeky inclusion, obviously, but the other reason I wanted it represented is because Hearthstone's kind of the reason why you and I didn't play much of games like Metal Gear Solid 5 this year. The reason that Metal Gear Solid 5 is not in our top 15 is... like Hearthstone has a lot to do with it. Hearthstone has a lot to do with the reason why there's a lot of games that aren't in our top 15, because Lucy and I have pissed so much time away playing Hearthstone.
And on my part, so much money.
Yeah.
Let's be completely honest.
Yeah, if you want to get that card collection up and running,
yeah.
man.
If we're going to start doing games as services, Lucy, you should start playing GTA Online with me.
Yeah.
You want to piss some money away?
Yeah.
You can you can join me in the yacht club.
Join him in the yacht
One of
club.
these days, Luke.
Yeah.
One of these days.
They cost several millions of dollars.
I don't. Is this game ended yet, or is it
It's,
still the menu screen? I can't tell.
It's almost done. It's almost done.
We should wrap it up then. This has been the top 15 games of the year for the Pubcast team. Well, thank you three. Firstly,
Thank you, Tristan.
Thanks,
you,
Tristan.
thank you to everyone who listens to the podcast and or is watching this right now and or just pays attention to what we do. We'll hope you have a good break.
And if you want Lucy and I to start doing Card Corner as an official Pubcast spin-off, let us know. If you don't let us know. Don't want to hear from you, not interested.
We just don't want to know.
Yeah.
Should we just keep watching this?
It's done, dude.
Is it?
See? Boom.
Is that the end?
Yes.
That's the end.
That's the end. Game over.
All right. That's
Oh,
definitely
fireworks.
the end.
Victory.
Woo, victory.
Trumpets. Trumpets.
Cards.
Explosions.
Cards.
What's that?
Cards.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.